Hello, everybody. We are back again, and man, do we have a good one for you guys today. We have Raphael from the SUBIE and YOU podcast today. Welcome, Raph.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
We are so excited to have you on. I know you and I have been talking a lot, and I've been just like dying to have you on here because, to be honest, like it just you have one of the best Subaru shows out there, and I think that everybody knows it. And it's just
Thank you.
so awesome to have listened to all of the interviews that you've done and like really take away so much, and having the same people on our podcast and being able to kind of take what you've asked them and try to figure out different questions to ask them to keep it fresh. And it's like you're so in depth with what you do. It's like I have to do like 3 days worth of homework. It's crazy. So
Yeah.
It
Thank you.
reminds me of Hot Ones, the same thing. They always have that deep dive and they always ask the person questions. They're like, I've never been asked that before. And so
yeah.
same kind of thing. You have to really, really push. So you're keeping us on our toes. Thank you.
Yeah, well, you're welcome. Yeah, I added in like the little segment at the end to get to know people a little bit better because I realized that like even though we have like conversations about them and their car and like part of their personality and who they are comes out throughout the episode, but I ask those specific questions at the end because then I feel like it helps people that are listening relate with them more.
Yeah. And like not just that, but it feels like I'm sure just by bringing on all of these people, and everybody has such a different experience with Subaru or such a different way that they build their car. And it's like you just get so much out of people sometimes. You just don't really even see it coming. And it's like it just makes for such a great episode. So I mean, I've seen a couple now with you. The Johnny Walker one I loved because it seems like you guys already had some rapport, and then
Yeah.
he just the way that he comes across, he's just such a funny guy, and he had so much to say, and it's just like I loved listening to it. I felt like he just really had you both had just like such a banter throughout the episode, which was great. So
Yeah, it's fun because like sometimes I will be chatting with somebody for a while before we actually record. And then there's other people that I haven't really chatted with much. And so I kind of get a little more worried about those. Like, is this going to go okay? But I've had ones where it's like we start talking and just instant click and it works well. Having conversations for a while beforehand is definitely helpful.
yeah. Something I learned when we were at Snowdrift, which I have to say, absolutely genius on your part, is we had Tully with us, who he loves you. We were talking about you the whole time.
Trail
And
Rex, Colorado.
yep.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
And Tully is always posting either you or us or whatever, and he's always tagging everybody.
yeah,
And
he's awesome.
when we were there with him, I saw on his back window it says the SUBIE and YOU podcast, and it has his episode number.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, what a great idea. That is like amazing.
And that wasn't even my idea. Somebody like episode 15, St. Charles, or I can't remember her exact handle, but Sir Charles Subi, Nicole, she asked, like, if is there a way to get a decal with my episode number? And she has an orange Crosstrek. And so I reached out to Jen and I was like, hey, she's asking if she can get one with her episode number. And so people would reach out to Jen and ask her, hey, can we get this? And then after a while, I'm like, dude, why don't you just put it on your website so that people can go in there? And if they've been on the podcast, just put in their episode number and order it. So that's what she did.
Yeah.
Amazing. It just like those are the moments where the community just like makes it, like I feel like what
Yeah.
a ingenious idea. And when I saw that, I was like, this is awesome. Like the sticker looks great on his window. I think it's like it just stands out. I think it was great. Yeah. How did you come across Tully? How did you guys meet?
I mean, we just connected on Instagram somehow,
Yeah.
we end up connecting with like so many different people. There's some people where it's like, I remember specifically, but you look back at like all your follower count and you look back through conversations and you're like, I don't even remember how we got connected. But I think there's a lot of people that ended up finding the podcast and starting a conversation because they saw somebody post in their stories about the podcast and they're like, oh, I didn't even know it existed. And so they'll go follow it that way.
Yeah.
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 The Subaru community is so tight knit. And
Yeah.
so it's a natural osmosis, I'd call it, where
I agree.
somebody talks to somebody, someone sees something, and like you said, next thing you know, all this connective tissue, it leads us back together. I mean, it doesn't matter whether you drive a lowered bags, or a lifted cross track. It really doesn't matter that at the end of the day, we can all go to the same meets and we can really connect with each other. I think Subaru has one thing really down is that sense of community, and that you go to if you went to a Subaru meet, it doesn't matter what kind of Subaru is there. Man, this is really cool. Like, even though
Yeah.
it's not your car, you can appreciate it and see that person's vision. And I think that's what really brings us back together, is going, hey, it's not the division of, well, you're lowered, I'm lifted, so we're outcasts. It's like, no, are we Subaru enthusiasts? Do we love these cars? Maybe we can band together and actually uplift each other,
Yeah, and it's so true too with people that have like a car that they just bought with no mods, and you show up at a car meet and they're excited for you because you bought a Subaru. You don't have to have had any mods,
Yes.
but they're like,
Amen.
because I've had so many people on the podcast that bought a car and they were invited to a meet by somebody, or they just happened to see that one was near them. So they're like, okay, I'm going to go ahead and just go. I'm nervous. I'm sure everybody's going to have like all these crazy modded cars, and mine doesn't have any mods. And then they get there and everybody's like, hey, welcome. It's so cool that you have a Subaru. And that's what it's all about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It reminds me of Matt, who was on our podcast before, actually stopped by today at the shop just to say hi and see the shop for the first time. It was awesome. And it goes out saying, Matt was the guy who had a Baja and said, you know what, man, I got to rebuild my engine. What do I do? And
I can help you.
fortunately, he reached into the Subaru community, and safe to say he was rewarded by finding everyone who wanted to help him. And there was a huge amalgamation of research and information that he could work from, and effectively rebuild his Subaru engine, because it's all about information. Everyone, I think, in the Subaru community, it's about sharing. And if I can help you do something, oh, hey, I've done something, it's never been done before. Someone messages me, hey, how can I do this? Well, foreshadow, if it's something that's never been done before, it might be a bigger endeavor that person might have anticipated, but still, yeah, I'll
Yeah.
give you everything that I know.
Now, something that I shared with Dave this week, we don't get very many reviews. We get a lot of comments on videos and stuff, but I was kind of flipping through everything, and I happened to cross our Apple page, and on Apple Podcasts, we had a review, 5 stars, that I just happened to come across.
I
And
didn't know you can get reviews.
yeah,
Yeah.
Raph, I love you. This is nothing personal, but
What?
this guy wrote, only good Subaru podcast. He said, I only good Subaru podcast I could find besides the one that ended 6 years ago, and the audio quality is super poor. This is way better. I'm saving to buy an 0203 Impreza WRX Sport Wagon because of this show. I love Subaru, and I hope you guys continue this show. 5 stars. So,
Have you heard of the SUBIE and YOU podcast, buddy?
He hasn't.
And a lot of people haven't. And,
so
Yeah, that's the struggle with the algorithm, let's call it, right? We can all agree on that,
whoever you are, Redhead the Brave, I want to tell you something. When I started this podcast, I also was an Apple Podcast user, and the only Subaru podcast that came up for me was the one that ended 6 years ago. There's only 6 episodes of. And
really?
And I don't know why the SUBIE and YOU podcast didn't come up at the time, but when I was looking, that was the one. And it was like, I don't know, these guys who had tried the podcast a couple times, it didn't work out. But I was like, man, like, this is cool. Like, I would love to do something like that and like really like take a step into that world. And then I immediately realized you had like 200 episodes out. And then I was like, my gosh, this guy's been doing it forever.
How long have y'all been doing your podcast?
So it's been about a year to this month. So
Okay.
we've been going about a full year now.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, we love it. I feel like every week I get to hang out with Dave for an hour. We get to bring on some cool people like you, and we just get to have a good time. And,
It's fun.
something I wanted to dive in with you on is the name of this podcast is going to be SUBIE and Who, because I want to know about you. I
like that.
honestly, personally, I don't know as much about you as I do know through other people. I feel like anybody that we talk to, your name comes up, which is great. I think everybody has a lot of good things to say.
Yeah, and that seems so crazy to me because I've had people say like, especially like after the podcast first started, they'd be like, "Oh yeah, we were out camping and we were talking about the podcast," and I'm like, "Why? Why?" Like
Yeah.
it seems so weird to me. And I think the reason it seems so weird to me is like there are so many people that are that I have on as guests and people in this community that have either known about Subarus for a really long time or they're like like very, very, big enthusiast. And so, like, for me, this is my first Subaru. It's, a 2021 Crosstrek. I didn't even know the community existed. I didn't even know that much about Subarus. And then I started a podcast and like, I wouldn't even say like I'm a super enthusiast because I feel like sometimes I feel very isolated here because there is a small community here, but there's not like a ton of people. Like I see people getting together all the time on Instagram and I know people that like live near each other and get out. So for me, it's like I just feel a little isolated. So I just feel like I'm not like in the community the way that a lot of other people are.
Yeah. No, I get that. And it's tough too because like really it seems like Subaru is so heavy on the East Coast, on the West Coast, in Colorado. There's like very
Yeah.
specific pockets of like huge Subaru like
100%.
Michigan, like with snowdrift and everything. Like there's just like these very specific areas. But yeah, I mean, so something I wanted to know is like kind of where it all began, like how you got into doing the podcast, what pushed you to start it, just how you kind of got to where you're at.
So I actually did a podcast before this one. I did one that was vegan themed because I'm vegan, and my goal with that was to like try to talk to and interview small businesses like around the Houston, Austin, San Antonio area, and just see like, okay, you obviously were not vegan before, and then you decided to become vegan, and then you decided to start this business. So like, what got you into starting the small business, and your passion from, being vegan and everything. I only ended up doing 33 episodes of that. So I already had some equipment. But then whenever I bought my Crosstrek, I started an account for it, started getting connected with people. And then I saw very quickly that people were posting like places that they were going. And back then we weren't doing reels and videos. It was mostly just photos. And so people were posting like a few photos of where they would go and then they'd put something in the caption. But then they would also, a lot of people were putting their build partners and all their mods and everything. And I'm like, this is really cool, but you don't really get a whole lot of information from the person or like them being able to share, their experience with having a Subaru. And so that's kind of where the idea came from is like,
Process.
yeah. And then like, would people be interested in talking more and expanding upon, what little you can share on social media? And
Mm.
so that was where the idea came from is like, hey, would people want to do this if I started this podcast? Because like I had only had my car for like maybe like 4 months before I started the podcast. And I mean, the idea came around like maybe a month and a half or 2 months in. But then it was like people were going to have to want to do this, And so I just started getting connected with people. And then I got connected with Jen from Eccentric Designs. And I bought a few of her decals. And so I kind of had to talk her into being my first guest. But she had been doing Eccentric Designs for about 6 months. She had a pretty good following. Her car account had a pretty good following. So people already knew who she was. But it worked out very strategically to have her on as my first guest because she was already well known. But like that wasn't my intent. My intent to have her on was because I was just buying stuff from her and talking to her.
Well, you were both starting out, right? I mean, in a
Yeah,
way.
Yep.
yeah. And she
So
was
it felt natural. And I think that
yeah,
kind of segues to the point is everything you've done has felt natural. It's
thank you.
followed that organic growth process of, hey, you know what? We're not the biggest, we're not the baddest, but you know what? You found your niche because and Subaru, I think, embraces that in as a culture. We find the people that are whether the like you said, at a car event shows up, they're the first time Subaru owner. Hey, we bring you in. It doesn't mean, hey, bought a bunch of Pep Boys things. And that's another thing I said in another podcast. If we see that, that one kid, we've all been there and he buys everything from the AutoZone, Pep Boys, whatever, aisle of aftermarket parts. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
we need to keep that kid under our wing and say, "Hey, look, yeah, you might get roasted a little bit for some of this stuff for a reason, you know? You know, the
Hey, little
fake,
guy, you
hood
don't need
scoops,
NOS.
all these things."
Yeah.
Yeah,
But that's a good point you made about bringing
you know,
people into the community. We have to help each other.
something that Dave and I learned going to Boxer Fest this year is that the 8-6 community is huge. And they, the BRZs, the 8-6s, all of those. So I think it's the 8-6 club. They have like a whole itinerary for Boxer Fest when they go. So Devin from Divine Force Racing, she basically sent us the itinerary and we were kind of going to everything. And it was so cool because after the event at the hotel, they all were like hanging out in the lobby and stuff. And everybody was just like talking about cars and whatever. And like, it was just like a little community within the community, which was kind of cool. And so I feel like those are the pockets where you do find some like really cool stories, or you get to really like grab somebody real quick and be like, "Hey, like while you guys are all hanging out here, like do you mind if I just like hand the mic around and we can just kind of like chat or whatever?" Like that's where it's tough because you kind of have to like step out of your shell and like really like jump into something, which I also am not like awesome with. I feel like it's like sometimes I'm like, just do it, just go.
Yeah, well, like when I was at Overland Expo last year, I was in the booth like the first, or because I went to 4 of the locations. I went to Arizona, Flagstaff, PNW, and then Colorado and Virginia. The first 2 were kind of like I was very reserved in the booth and just trying to, figure out what I'm gonna do and get to know people and stuff. But then Colorado, like I met some people in Colorado that really helped me kind of step out of my shell and be a little bit more open and brave and be like, just, go up and talk to people.
Yeah.
But like when I was in and I was in the Subaru booth, I kind of almost felt like, okay, I'm working here and like I remember like waiting tables. It was always really easy for me to talk to people because that was part of my job. And so, if you're just like in a situation where you're about around a bunch of random strangers, it's hard to just go up to people and just start talking to them. But when it's your job, it's a little bit easier. So I kind of felt that way a little bit more when I got to Colorado, and then Virginia was a little bit easier. And then everything that I've been doing since then with all the content creation I've been doing, when I go this year, I'm going to be like even more comfortable and it's going to be easier to just go up to people and start talking to them, at the
Yeah.
first event rather than like the third event.
Yeah.
You also know
What
people too, so that helps too.
So, what has been like one of your hardest episodes to record? And then who are some people that you've run into that you've just met through doing the podcast that, you met either at an event or something like that? Some cool people.
As far as like the hardest one, like what do you mean?
Like either there's a couple, I guess there's a couple different ways. Either somebody that is just like, I don't know, like I know that you and I talked about the Travis episode, right? Like that's a hard episode to get and it just kind of like lined up.
Yeah.
Like I think that for me, right, I would consider that hard because I wouldn't even know where to begin to try to get him on. Like
Yeah.
I think that like that really, I'd like you if you could talk a little bit about that because I
Yeah,
think
of
that
course.
was a really interesting conversation. And I think you know Travis is like kind of the dream to have on, especially at episode 199. I
Yeah.
mean, that was perfect. So, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah, so that one, I mean, first of all, my podcast is sponsored by Subaru of America through Subaru Gear, which I feel like very blessed to be having that, relationship. And so because I know people at SOA, because I know people at Subaru Motorsports USA, I have connections that where I can talk to people and be like, "Hey, can I get, this person on or whatever?" And so Travis had been on the radar for a long time and not necessarily by me, but people listening to the podcast are like, "You got to get Travis, you got to get Travis, you got to get Travis." I'm like, "Well, I can't just be like, pick up the phone and be like, 'Hey, Travis, you want to be on the podcast?'" So, me knowing certain people, it was just like a progression of time. So, it kind of started at SUBIE Fest, Texas, and not this last year, but the year before, I guess, because he was going to be there, or maybe it was this last year. I can't remember. But anyway, so he was going to be at SUBIE Fest, Texas. And so I started having conversations with some people, and then they said, well, maybe we can find some time at SUBIE Fest, Texas to get him on. And so that didn't end up working out. And so I was like, okay, well, can we like, do it remotely? And they're like, yeah, we'll see what we can do. And so this guy that I know from SOA, was talking to Travis and he was like, by the way, it's going to be episode 199. And so when Travis heard that, he said that he got a little more excited and like, oh, yeah, I think that could be really cool. And Travis already knew about the podcast because, Rhiannon had been on like 3 times before. And then I had sent some hats to her and she had, him and her sign them. So he already knew about the podcast, which was good. But then he had his hip surgery like right before Christmas and he was like having to recover. And so because he had that downtime, it just lined up. I mean, like when I recorded the episode, that was like at the end of December, no, it was like right after Christmas. So yeah, it was the end of December. But the episode didn't come out until March. But I'm like, I have to record this now, even though it's going to come out like 3 months later because that
Yeah.
window is small.
Yeah. So
So
when you recorded, were you at like 195 or something and you were kind of like spacing it out so that it would come out at the right time or
yeah, I think at that time I was already doing the episodes every other week, maybe.
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean, I don't remember what episode I was at when I recorded with him, but I'm just like, this time, this slot is saved, I'm just going to record it now and I might have to be careful with how I put my episodes together before that and not accidentally be like, oh, you're going to be episode one. And no, you can't. Somebody else has that one.
Yeah.
Were you nervous walking into that?
Well, heck yeah, man. But I mean, like, I also met him at SUBIE Fest, Texas. Like, I went up there for the autographs, and then I actually caught him behind the simulator booth because he was talking to somebody else, and I was walking to where the restrooms were back there, and they had like the hand washing station. So I was going over there to wash my hands because I had just eaten something, and so I just happened to see him talking to somebody else, and I knew that my contact from SOA had already talked to him about it. So I just went up there and kind of awkwardly waited for him to finish his conversation with the other guy. And then I chatted with him for a little bit, brought up the podcast, and he said that he was excited about it and everything. But then, like, yeah, like actually having him on the podcast, like, coming up to that moment of when I was going to record, I was like really nervous. But then he starts talking and it's just, he's just like another person.
Yeah.
So I kinda calmed down some after that, but I mean, I've had some
Yeah.
really, like, nerve-wracking episodes, like, I had Lance Smith on from Vermont
Mhm.
Sports Car, and I
Yep.
actually got on a phone call with him the day before because I was like, "This is Lance Smith," like, I wanna be
Yeah.
able to talk to him before, and then so I use Zoom for my episodes and just to connect, I don't record video, but whenever I had Rhiannon on for the first time, I was using Zencaster and I sent her the link and she was like, I can't open it up. And I think I had tried Riverside before at one point. So I sent her a link for that. She couldn't open it up either. And we were just emailing back and forth. And so she said, do you think we can do it over Zoom? And I'm like, oh crap. Like, I've never used Zoom. Like, I don't even have an account. So I literally had to like set up an account real quick and figure out like how to use it and stuff. And I'm like, and we're trying to communicate back and forth through email. And she's like waiting. And I'm literally like, my armpits were like so sweaty. Like, I was so
Like
hot.
panic.
Dude, yeah. I was like, of all people, I'm like having her wait for me. But then we got connected and she was super chill. Like every time I've met her, she's just super awesome. But like
We
that
ran into
was like
her
nerve-wracking.
we ran into her at Boxerfest because Johnny Walker's car was at our booth and she was like, "Oh my gosh, who
Nice.
owns this? This thing is crazy." And I was about to be like, "Yeah, it's mine." No. It's just but, yeah, like, she was checking out the kitchen and stuff. We got to talk a little bit, which was cool. She was talking with Johnny a little bit about the build, and then she had to run off because they were doing stuff, but, yeah, she's somebody I would love to have on. I feel like she's super cool. We saw her at Snowdrift too, like, she's just, like, super
Nice.
friendly with people.
And I'm sure she would do it because she's been on a lot of podcasts. So I think you could make that happen.
Yeah. Yeah,
I'll make
we
an
you know
introduction.
It's kind yeah, it's kind of interesting because, like, I feel like a lot of these podcasts, they kind of pick a direction, and I feel like with us, like, we kinda jump around to a lot of different topics, a lot of different guests, anything from some dude on Reddit to, we just had Smeedy on. So, like, it's just, like, such a wide variety of things going on. But I really do feel like we've had a lot of good luck with the ARA and having some
Yeah,
of
that's
these
nice.
drivers on and meeting these people in person and getting, like, really cool interviews and stuff, and I mean, I've been loving it, so and with you, like, the way that you kinda started out, it was just, like, talking to people, figuring out what they do, figuring out about their rides, and, like, it's led you to where you're at now, and, like, it's just kind of really cool to see like 10 feet back, just like your whole journey start to finish of like where you're at now. Because I mean, like I said, I hear your name everywhere I go, the people I talk to, like it's just
It's so
like,
crazy.
I know.
Well, and I think your name kind of embodies that in the most positive way. It's a Subi and you, because I think that really encompasses what Subarus are to people.
Yeah.
It's a personal endeavor. Like I was saying earlier, it doesn't matter whether you want to lift it or lower it, doesn't matter, or keep it stock, doesn't matter. It's going to be reliable. It's going to get you to where you need to be. It's going to be safe. My mom shamelessly drives a Subaru Outback, and for good reason, because it's, heaven forbid if anyone, doesn't stop through a stoplight and crashes into them, I know my mom's safe. That's really
Yeah.
important to me. And I think that's something that Subaru really encompasses as a brand is they're so cross-platform. It doesn't matter whether you want this or that, but we're to keep your
Yeah.
family safe.
I mean,
That's something that we
they
can all appreciate.
they really push it in their ads too. They want you to know.
Yeah, and both of my kids have Subarus. My son has a 2010 Outback. He has
Yeah.
a 3.6R, which is nice too. Uh,
Hey,
and
yes,
and
six
his
cylinder.
has like yeah, I think his has like 220,000 miles or close to that.
Let's
And
Nice.
go.
then we bought it with 199 on it. And then my
Yeah.
daughter has the 2.0 premium for Crosstrek, and
Oh,
she loves it.
nice.
Yeah, it's the Sunblaze
Yeah.
Pearl too, which is kinda like the orangish color. Dude, it's
Oh,
so
That's
nice.
cool. Wow.
But yeah,
beautiful color.
yeah, and I mean, so we get a lot of rain in Houston, and so, like, I feel a lot safer with them, not only just I mean, with the all-wheel drive,
Yeah.
in the rain, and then just them being such safe cars.
If they travel, that's the big thing. If one of them, you even mentioned coming up here to Colorado. If you come out here in the winter, you can guarantee in a Subaru you're going to be fine.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
why it's our kind of unofficial, state car is a Subaru in
Yeah.
Colorado
Yeah.
because, yeah, we know if you want to go skiing, snowboarding, anything, even going to camping spots in the summer. I've long said it, not knocking Subarus in any way, but they're not rock crawlers, obviously.
No, we don't need to be.
And they're the few people that have built those select few with the tank tracks and everything. Respect, but that's not for the masses, And I think that Subaru really encompasses that, I guess, jack of all trades, kind of mentality. It's like whenever you encompass anything or encounter anything, rather, Subaru's got you covered.
Yeah. Going to, Colorado was my first off-road trip, so that was really cool.
Hell
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. That was fun.
Yeah, I mean, Colorado is amazing. I mean, with Pikes Peak and everything, and there's so many cool places. There's so many Subarus out there. I mean, it's like you go there, you just start seeing them everywhere. And it's funny because when I go to Colorado, it reminds me of New Jersey like 10 years ago. It's like all the old Subarus are still running and you see them on the highway everywhere. Like now in New Jersey, like you don't see them
They
anywhere.
haven't
It's like
rusted.
they're just all gone, you know? It's like I remember, like, you couldn't drive on the highway without seeing at least a couple. Now it's like, there's none. You're not seeing any.
Do
We
y'all
we
know
still
that
see first gen Outbacks all the time because they haven't rusted out. First gen
Crazy.
Foresters, they haven't rusted out. It's kind of nice out here.
did y'all know that mine is a manual?
No, that's
Yeah,
cool.
my Crosstrek. Yeah.
You know what? Who was talking to us
Best ones.
about a manual Crosstrek? Was that Johnny Walker? Was he talking to us about that? Maybe he mentioned you. He was saying something about somebody who had a manual Crosstrek.
There's a few of us out there.
Yeah, that I've heard that
The
it's like a
best
very
ones.
very few in between.
I'll
So
say it.
Yeah, I've got 142,000 miles on it now. I think, yeah, that's what
Okay.
I'm
wow,
at.
that's cool.
On the OEM clutch too, which is, like,
Okay, I was
scary.
gonna say original clutch.
Yeah, I'm a
Yeah.
little scared about that, but
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's not grabbing at the
Well,
top yet.
and let's say
it's
not jinxing it, but let's say at 150,000 miles, you have to put a clutch in. How mad can you be in a car? You know what I mean?
yeah,
Yeah.
You can't really be mad at the car because at 150,000 miles, you had to put a clutch in. It's a lot
yeah,
better than at 150,000 miles, someone puts in a CVT transmission because they forgot to change their fluid. That's a big
Hey,
pet peeve. Patrick knows.
if you ever
God,
if you ever wanna feel better, if you bought a Chevy, you'd be putting a Trans in at 40,000. So,
yeah,
you know.
yeah. I
yeah.
have a cousin that bought he bought a one of the newer Chevy SUVs?
Is it the tracks?
Traverse?
Yeah, it's a Traverse. He bought a used Traverse, and he called me up, like, maybe 2 weeks later, and he's like, "You're never gonna believe this." I'm like, "What?" He's like, "My car is already in the shop." And I'm like, "Shoulda bought a Subaru." He's like, "But I'm a Chevy guy." I'm like, "Yeah,
I'm
well, your
telling you
Chevys aren't working out so well."
I'm telling you, I had a 2025 Traverse in the shop today.
Ooh,
2025. It's a year old. The guy had I mean, I guess it's not his fault, but he had a squirrel eat through the connector for
Oh,
his ignition coil. But Chevy, right? Top of the engine. First three cylinders are covered by the intake manifold and all the other electrical stuff that's on the top of the engine. Cylinder four is just right there, right out in the open, ready for the squirrel to come and eat. Guess what? You can't just buy the pigtail for one connector. You have to buy the whole harness. And instead of it
man.
being a half-hour job to just do the one connector, now it's over a 2-hour job to remove everything just for that. It's like, yeah,
Well, speaking
shit.
of engine work, my son changed out all of the spark plugs on his, Outback, like, he did 95% of it by himself, and
Wow, nice.
yeah, it took a while, but we got it done. That was, like, super crazy because everybody was like, "That cylinder number 6, man, it's horrible."
Yeah,
And, yeah, that was the toughest one, but we did it.
nice.
Yeah.
Spark plugs are the one thing about Subaru that every time I'm like, "Oh, no, don't wanna do it."
you gotta have the right tools.
So, Raph, who would be the next big guest for you? Who is somebody that you aspire to have on the podcast that maybe is like kind of like has to be the right time or, far reaching kind of something like that?
That's a really good question because I haven't really thought about it too much, but
Yeah.
I think, like yeah, I don't know. That's well, actually, I need to ask her about it again, but Alex Gelsomino, because when we were at Overland Expo P&W, Alex and Rhiannon were there, and we talked I actually interviewed him briefly while we were there, but we had talked about getting him on to talk about his experience with Ken and, like,
Hmm.
that whole relationship and everything, so I think that would probably be it because we did have the conversation, like I said, I just haven't looped back around to it to see, like, "Hey, can we make that happen now?"
Yeah. That would actually be an awesome episode. And he would be a great person to have on. I think, especially now with the whole, Leah relationship, I think that there's just like so much to dive into there. And
She'd be a good guest too.
true. Yeah, I mean, in the Subaru world, right? Like, it really does seem like those are the people that are kind of on top that Subaru backs the most, and having them on is like huge. Like Travis, Rianne, and
Bucky.
all of these people, Bucky. Have you is there anybody in the automotive world that you would wanna interview that maybe does some photography or filming, or people who have kinda made a name for themselves in, like, following ARA and things like that? I don't know how much of that you've had because a lot of it seems like you have a lot of owners or people involved in Subaru, but there's a lot of people that actually just follow the sport, or they have a lot of experience on the track at rallies doing that kind of recording.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, like, I don't really follow ARA that much. This is where I come into, like, the imposter syndrome of, like, I feel like I know so little about Subaru and the whole community and, like, ARA and all that kinda stuff because I just don't really follow it like, a lot of people do. But, I mean, I've had, let me get their names right. Christopher Bose and why can't I think of the guys that do Subaru Launch Control. I've had them on,
Okay.
but they do it professionally for all of the events. And
Yeah.
then I've had some other people on, like I had, man, why am I drawing a blank?
Like,
Hold on.
somebody I've always wanted to have on, which I think would be such a cool episode, is Larry Chen.
My gosh, yeah.
Like
Mhm.
like,
Dude,
to
that guy is awesome.
I love that guy, and the videos he's put out, the photos that he's gotten, like, what a life. Like, he's just caught every moment of
He's just
everything, like
everywhere.
Have
Larry Chen is everywhere.
have you
Let's just
seen
establish that.
the video he did, and I can't remember the guy's name, but the guy does like a lot of Bishimoto, I think, or something like that, maybe. But anyway, he's with this guy who did this like super awesome electric Porsche. And Larry Chin is sitting in the driver's seat because the guy is like letting him, drive it. And he's like, hold on, I got to do this stuff with social media real quick or whatever. And he's like, I can't believe this is my job, like that I get to do stuff like this. And
Yeah.
that moment right there, I was like, how cool is that? That this guy is sitting here in this electric Porsche. He's got like this huge following and everything. And he's having like a real life moment of like, I'm doing this, like recording with you and putting out this video and stuff. And I can't believe I get to do this. Like, I can't believe this is my job. I mean,
Yeah.
But for context,
that's
I
so
for
mean
anyone
cool.
that says and not knocking it, anyone that says, they couldn't do it. Yeah, you could do it, but you also have to be in the right place, the right time,
you
Yeah.
you
know,
have to know the right people. Do the right things, let's call it. You have to
as
do the right
far
things.
as that, like, I do believe in that, but, like, to be honest, Larry Chen's one of those guys who has just worked every second of his life to get there.
Mhm.
It's like
That's what I mean.
the amount of work that he's done, and then, like, he talks about having his team, he's up at 3 in the morning to get out before sunrise to figure out where they're gonna set up and get the right
Get the
shots, and,
right shot.
you know and then, like, he does these videos on how he goes through his process of collecting all the videos, all the footage, sifting through, figuring out which ones to keep, because it's, like, thousands of hours of stuff that he collects, and then he has to sift through it all, and it's, like, amazing the process how he just rips through it. Like, he just knows exactly what he needs. He knows exactly the moments to scope out and pick, and, like, it's just like, I watched a video on him where somebody let him into a private collection of all, like, these old JDM, cars that somebody bought, like, brand new, no miles, and they just parked them in a warehouse, and some of these cars have, like, not seen daylight in 30 years, and they're walking him through there, and they're just like, yeah, that's a Mercedes Evo. Yep, that's an original Supra. Yep, that's a GTR. And, like, he's just like, my gosh, I get to, like, record this. Like, nobody gets to see this, you know? It's just, like, so cool, some of the stuff he gets to do.
Yeah, I mean, as far as like his process of like picking out, what he wants to put together in the video, I mean, when you've been doing it long enough, you can do it very quickly.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like with anything. Cause when I first started the podcast, before I even started the vegan podcast, there was this couple that I connected with and they're both vegan and they had a podcast. Well, they still do their podcast, I think. They were trying to put together like a podcast training program and they reached out to me because we'd been communicating about stuff and then they had like a few other people that they helped get started and they wanted to use us as kind of like test subjects, so they gave us like a really good price on it. And so they did all of their training videos on Facebook. So I was going through and watching them all, and like they were using GarageBand to edit and record and everything, and I didn't have a Mac at the time. I had this old HP that was super slow, and so I ended up getting a MacBook, and then because I'm like, I know like their training is on GarageBand, and I've wanted a Mac forever anyway. Like whenever I was starting out, like I had to like refer to all my notes, and like the whole process of like putting everything together. And then now I just like do it without even thinking, it's so easy. So once you get into a flow of doing something creative, it gets a lot easier to just put it together. But I mean, I just can't even imagine like
Yeah.
all of the content and, videos and stuff that he's gotta take and photos but he's really, really good at what he does, and he has, like, this great passion for it, and I'm sure he has moments like that all the time, like, "I can't believe I get to do this," but he's doing it, and I'm sure,
Yeah.
like, the reward of being able to put his content out is just like, I couldn't even imagine that.
Yeah. There's something that I'm sure you can relate to in doing what we do, which is like when you're making content, it's so hard to not have the final say on things. And it's like you want to just be meticulous with it. You want things to be perfect. You want everything to be cut the way you want it to be cut. And like it's like that's been like such a battle because, we record every week and I've was like really wanting to like to like edit everything the way that I see it. And, I have a 4-month-old, just turned 5 months, and I have a full-time job. And it's like having to spend hours editing is like impossible. It's like when do you do that? It's like so we have somebody who edits for us, a buddy of mine, AJ, who's from a local car community, Tri-State Subaru gang, and he's great. We met. He does all the video footage for the drives that we go on every month, and he takes all the photos and everything. He kind of offloaded it for him, but now, like, even after he edits it, I do like a full sift through. I make changes. It's like your baby, you just don't want to let it
Yeah.
go, and you just want it to be like the right way in your head, like what you envision. And it's like so hard to like not go through and just like really meticulously look over everything.
Yeah, and I think that's why I've always done I mean, I don't do video, but I've always done just audio, but, like, I've had people say, like, "Why don't you, like, have somebody edit for you?" I'm like, "Because I wanna edit the way I wanna edit," you know?
Yeah.
I'm gonna end up listening to it, and I'm gonna wanna change it anyway probably, or people aren't gonna edit the way that I wanna edit, and they might not put in the time that I do, because, like, one of the things that I used to do forever, and I stopped doing it close to a year ago, and it literally changed my life, like, as far as, like, editing goes and doing the podcast, because it was something that I had to just completely let go of, and because I was editing out almost every single in my episodes, and if you go through my, like, tracks on GarageBand, it was like break, 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 break,
Yep.
break, and, it was driving me crazy to have all the ums in there. And then but it would take me sometimes, like, 30 minutes to edit 5 minutes of audio. And, like, at one point, I'm like, "Why am I doing this?" Like,
Yeah.
I'm the only person that cares about it. Like, I'm the only person that it's bothering. Other people that are listening, it's probably not gonna bother them. Why am I spending so much time doing this when I can just be like, "Just let it go."
Yeah.
And when I let that go, every once in a while, I'll cut one out or something. When I let that go, I felt so free. I was like, because it was taking me hours to edit, and
Yep.
now I just go through it and I just edit out, like, the brain farts or, like, "Hey, I gotta run to the restroom real quick," or whatever it may be, and now it makes the editing process so much quicker, and I feel so much better about it.
There's also a mental shift where all of a sudden you realize that the first
Yeah.
episode I ever did, I look back on, I always say, not in any more of a way, but the only episode I've ever watched was the first one, and I felt like Ricky Bobby,
Yeah.
you know?
We
And so I
well,
realized I have to keep my hands down and not say, same thing, kind of like the ums, and, it's the same kind of thing. You have to introspect a little bit and say, you know what? Maybe I do these things and sometimes they're okay.
yeah.
There's the
This is a
power of editing to a certain extent,
Yeah.
but at the same time, you know what? There's also genuineness, and if somebody is more articulate and is really passionate about something, like, so be it.
Yeah. This is the first time also I've been like, because I've done some other things before, episodes where they were on camera, and like I've always hated that's one of the reasons I've never done a video podcast, is because I was like, I don't want to be on camera. And I didn't really know how to do like editing with YouTube, and I was working full time and having my kids and other stuff. I'm like, I am not gonna, like, sit here and kill myself trying to figure out how to do a YouTube video of the podcast and the whole editing process, and then just because a few people want it to be on YouTube, like, it's my
Yeah.
podcast, I'm the one that's I think there's a genuineness to it being audio only, with
Yeah.
so many things being video.
Sure.
And because, like, if you look at, like, one of the podcasts that I listen to is Smartless, and they're, like, one of the biggest podcasts in the world, and it's audio only, like, they don't do video, and they're
Yep.
all actors, So, like, I like that mine started off being audio only, and I think I've decided, like, I'm gonna continue to do audio only. Like, when I go to Overland Expo, I'm gonna do a YouTube video of me recording with somebody, but I don't
Sure.
wanna change my content and my process now over 5 years into into doing this.
Yeah. When we first started, I'm one of those people that for me, when I start something, I hate starting unprepared because I feel like what's the point in diving in on something if you're not going to make it good? Like for me, like I like having the right equipment and whatever and like making sure it sounds good and not too over the top, but I want to at least make sure we're putting out a good product and I want it to be something that people enjoy. So we started out, I had seen I did a little bit of scoping and I found that people were using an app called Podcastle. So that was what we started on before Riverside. I had recorded the first episode actually because I've had the Subaru Mechanics Facebook group for 10 years or over 10 years now. And so Freddie Brees was one of the first people from IAW in Delaware. He was one of the first people that I started it with, and we were friends ever since. And so he has his own shop, and I was like, listen, like let's do a podcast together. We recorded the first episode. He was in his garage, and turns out that Podcastle didn't record anything on his end. So I only had half an episode.
My gosh.
So
Wow.
I was like, so then after that, it took me so long to get him on that he just was like, I'm not going to do it again. He's like, we already did it once and it didn't work and whatever. So then it was like another year or two until finally like Dave came around and it kind of worked out. And by that time I had learned that like, I was still using Podcastle, but Dave had a better connection or whatever the deal was. It worked out. We started recording. If you go back and listen to our first
Not
episode,
sponsored Verizon.
our first episode is brutal. And it's mostly because what I found out through the process was that when I'm too close to the mic, Dave is so loud that the audio of Dave's voice gets picked up in my mic. So there was all this like
Yeah.
background, like chirps and chatter. And I,
Yeah.
so like you said, I spent probably our first like 10 episodes I was going in and I was cutting and editing out every single chirp that was in the
My God.
audio, and I spent, like, 5 hours per episode editing. It was brutal, and
Yeah.
then finally, I realized the problem was that I had to mute Dave's audio when I was talking, and I had to mute my audio when Dave was talking, so that nailed
That's a
it down to,
pain.
like, 4 hours, So, eventually I got to the point where I realized what was happening and we switched over to Riverside and like the audio stuff is way better and whatever. And like now it's like, I go back and listen to the first episodes and I'm like, oh my God, how bad was that?
Yeah. Well, when you said, getting started with something and wanting to be prepared and wanting to have it like just right and everything, it's like I'm that way too, but sometimes you just have to start messy and just start
Yeah.
doing it. You know,
Well, that's what happened. Yeah.
'Cause you'll figure it out along the way. Your process will improve. I mean, it's just like me with
Hmm.
with the Roadcaster Pro. I've been to, let's see, I went to SUBIE Fest, California. I went to Subaru Flat Fest in Madison, Wisconsin. I went to the big event here in Houston twice. And then I think at least one other event and then I went and recorded with somebody, a couple of people in person that live here in Houston. So, and then somebody that lived in San Antonio. So I traveled with my Roadcaster Pro, mic stands, microphones, cables, headphones, all of this equipment. And, because like that was the only thing that I knew to do at the time. And then it was, because sometimes things will come up that necessitate you trying to figure out something
Mhm.
different. So when they invited me out to 48 Hours of
100%.
Tri State and they were like, we want you to record in car content, I'm like, I don't really have anything to do that other than my phone, and that's gonna sound like crap. So that's when I
Yeah.
started researching, and I looked at I think like 4 different options of trying to do it. And like I even looked at this one box where you can plug in microphones and headphones into this smaller device. And I'm like, but then you still have headphones and microphones and all this stuff. And then that's when I came across the Rode Wireless Pro. And like whenever I ordered it, it wasn't even released yet. I had to pre-order it. Like, doing that just totally changed. I was like, this is gonna like really improve my ability to record on location because when I did Subi Fest, like when I did all those events, I was stationary. Like I had to be there with my equipment. Now I can take my equipment with me. And, so you just, that took a long time to get there, but you can always make improvements somewhere and
Yeah.
do
Yeah.
something different to make it different or make it more fun or whatever it may be, but you
Yeah.
just
I
gotta
mean,
start.
I always reflect back on the starting of Subaru mechanics because at the time I was just battling with Garden State Subarus, the group that I was part of in New Jersey, and I was like, man, it would be cool to make a group that's like just about mechanics trying to fix stuff and helping people with their cars. Because every post in that group where somebody needed help, it would just get pummeled down by all the photos and videos and people posting about their car and whatever.
Mhm.
And so I was like, well, we should make like a safe haven to like help people fix their stuff, you know? And when I first made that group, I was like, man, how am I going to get people to join this group? And then I was like, I'm going to join every single group and I'm going to post this group in that group. And I would read the rules. I would see if the rules of the group mentioned anything about no promoting, whatever. If it did, I wouldn't. But I
Yeah.
was in every group posting this. I would just, yep, anybody who posted mechanical something, I would be in the comments, "Hey, check
By the
out this
way,
group," you know? Yeah, I am banned from probably half the Subaru groups on Facebook from that because people just were like, so like, "What are you trying to do here?" But, it got me kickstarted where like people were coming in, and then it got to the point where it was like uncontrollable, and now it's just like, we're over 300,000 people that it's like
wow.
impossible. So I feel like my Subaru journey is a little different because I've kind of linked up with a lot of good companies that back us and they work with us through the group. And so it's kind of cool because I've had them on the podcast and that's kind of opened up the doors initially for us having really known people on or like having good interviews. And so I feel like we kind of did have a little bit of a jump start, but I feel like now like the work has really kicked in because like now, Dave and I got the whole booth set up, we're going to events, we're sponsoring stuff, like trying to really like push now to like get our foot in the door with people that I don't have connects with
Yeah.
or people,
Well, like
like
like you were saying earlier, Raphael, like, about once you establish yourself in the community, it speaks for itself. And the companies that you're talking about that are committed to the group and providing consistent,
like Dave.
information to people. No, not just us, but there's other people. I mean, uh, there's so many other sponsors in our group, Mark, who are really contributing to the community and saying, "Hey, look, what can we help you guys with?
You know,
What do you guys need? What do you guys
something
have a problem with?"
something that we learned along the way too was who in the community to link up with because man, that was another battle because like, I have a community with all of these admins and moderators and we're all trying to like we all have the same goal, right? Like don't let the group get out of control. Keep everything under control, keep it cool, whatever. And so every time that a company entered and we would kind of talk with them or whatever, then it just kind of turned into this whole like, whoa, who are they? Do you know them? What is their deal? Is it legit? Like, and so like basically my admins and moderators kind of like were the gatekeepers of like who is a good company and who isn't. And so that kind of led me down the right road of like figuring out who in the community can be trusted, who people like, what's the best, you know what I mean? And so I feel like for you, it's kind of cool because you've kind of been down the road of like you've met so many people in the community and like you have connects with VSC, with Subaru of America, like, and so you've kind of been in connect with all of the right people. And it's kind of like led to you getting invited to do stuff and like grow. And so, like, that's kind of where I know Dave and I would love to be is like finding our way down in the community and like finding our path. And so far, it seems like the ARA has been a great starting point to just kind of meet people and get out there and grow.
Yeah, and what's cool about it too is like you start doing this with no intention of like, "Oh, I'm doing this so that I can get connected with certain people and get certain people on and do certain things and go to certain places." It's just like a byproduct of, "I've been doing this," because you have other people that are like advocating for you. Like, "Hey, we all love what this person is doing, no matter what it may be.
Yep.
You gotta, get in contact with them because they're like what they're doing is so great." And so, like, that's like how so many doors open up for people that are just doing something because they wanna do it, and then next thing you know, like, they're doing really cool stuff, and it's just because it grew organically from all the connections and everything.
My mind immediately goes to Tanner. I mean, Tanner's a guy who's just about it. Oh, he's about Subarus. He's about like car culture,
He's talking
in a
about
really core, fundamental way.
He's talking about Tanner Smith, from Smedia.
Smedia.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah.
I've heard of Subie.
He's a guy who's a real car enthusiast guy. Like these are the guys we want to support. These are the guys we need to keep in our community, as opposed to, the private equity companies we talked about in another episode is taking over our community, saying, "Hey, we're going to put a bunch of money in and we expect to get our money back." Well, are you a real enthusiast? No, we don't really care for you. Like, we don't care. Like, simply put, the automotive community speaks for itself in money. We don't let private equity. I mean, I think the whole
Well, I think,
Raleigh Sport Direct says it.
as far as private equity goes, it is what it is. I think that those things are happening in the community. I think it's more of this is the community, right? Like what we're doing. We're bringing in people who support the community. We're bringing on people who we want to have their story told and talk with them and like really dig in. And I think that no matter how you find it, right? Sometimes they find you. It's just a matter of you're taking the time out of your day and you are building something and building this platform and you're giving people the spotlight. And I think it's cool because it's not really about it really isn't about you or your experiences with Subaru or kind of what you're doing.
Mhm.
Like like you said, like you started this shortly after getting your Subaru. And from there, you just kind of gave other people the opportunity to talk about their builds and kind of where they're from. And I think that it's really cool because I've always been a big fan of you know what they always say, right? Like talk to everybody because you never know what you're gonna find, or you never know who they are, where they're from, and their story. And like that's what I find so amazing about your podcast is that everybody who comes on, you just never know what you're gonna get. And I think it's kind of entertaining to hear everybody's kind of own story about how they got into Subaru or why they build it the way they do and all that.
Yeah, and I mean, that was the original intention of the podcast is just to give people a place to come on and talk about their journey. And then, because like when I first envisioned it before I ever had any guests, was like just people coming on and talking about their Subaru and what they've done to it and places they've gone. But then it very quickly turned into a podcast about the people that are driving it, not just the car itself.
Yeah.
Because you have like
Mhm.
certain reasons of like why somebody bought a Subaru. Like maybe like I've had people on that like, their Subaru was like their grandparents' Subaru or it was their dad's Subaru or whatever. And so it has a lot of meaning to them. And then you have people on that, maybe got into an accident in a Subaru and they're like, because of that, I'm only going to buy Subarus from now on. Like I love Subaru because I feel like it saved my life. And then you have people that, their Subaru helped them get through a really hard time in their life. And so like, maybe somebody passed away and, they're like, I really enjoy my Subaru. I love doing modifications. I love driving it. And having this particular car, it helped me get through some hard times because then I also had other people in the community that were helping to support me in addition to my family. And it's just like, that's why I always ask at the
Mhm.
end of the episode, how is your let me do that over. Editing. How has your Subaru changed your life? Because I think one of the biggest things though for people getting into the community and like it because it changes everybody's lives in different ways, but I think like the biggest common denominator and common theme is the people that we have all met because we bought a Subaru. And because we're also, because we found the community. Because there's so many people out there that are just daily driving a Subaru that don't know that there's a community. For
Mhm.
the people that found the community, and it's like that's how it's changed their lives because so many people have said, most of my best friends now are people in the Subaru community. And I always think about like, if you didn't buy this car, there's so many people out there that you would have never met. And some of these people that are your best friends, so many places that you've gone, things that you've done because you bought this car.
Yeah.
There's like
Well said.
there's so much
Well said.
power in that.
Yeah. Subaru to me has been kind of like a passion project more than anything. I think that building a community around fixing them is you see the people at their worst, right? You see them when their car is blown up and they have nobody there to support them. They're in their garage by themselves trying to figure out, like, what do I do? My only car is destroyed, whatever. And like that's when I get to see the community circle around them in the comments and be like, "Hey, I got a spare engine. Hey, I have this for you. Hey, this is how you fix this." Like there's always ways around it. Like, you know, I think it's been cool over the years to just see how those things have kind of come together. And like now with the podcast, it feels like we're entering a little bit of a different area, which is cool. We're not so tied into like, hey, this is the pocket of like fixing Subarus. Now we're entering the, hey, this is like real news that's going on. There's different Subarus coming out and what Subaru America is doing and things like that. So, you know, I think that it's kind of cool to be able to spread our wings a little and explore some different areas of Subaru, you know?
Yeah. And I think, kind of touching on that, I mentioned earlier like that we start doing something like this because it's something that we enjoy and then certain things start happening. But I think you can get to a point to where like because things have happened, because you've met certain people along the way, because, some doors have opened and brought in some really cool opportunities, you get to a point to where it's like I can actually be intentional about certain things that I want for me for this podcast, But it's like, I mean, this podcast has never been about, me really, because it's about Subi and
Mhm.
you, like everybody else. But,
Yeah.
there has to be something in it for me to continue to do it. And for me, like getting to go to these events and meet people that are on different sides of the country, because I'm in Houston, I'm like kind of centralized
Mhm.
and away from everybody else. So having the opportunity to go to these events and meet so many people is like for me, like personally, that's what I get a lot out of is getting to see these people in person and talk
Well
to
said.
them in person rather than online, and I wouldn't have had that opportunity if I didn't do this podcast and I wasn't able to go, out to these different spots because I've met I think like close to 100 of my guests in person because I've had the
Wow.
opportunity to go different places and do different things.
And I can tell you that at least the guests of yours that I've met, they love you.
So
You
that's
know,
good.
I
That
think that
guy.
I think that that speaks for itself, you know? Like I said, Tully, he posts about you, like, every day, you know?
Yeah.
It's like the impression that you've made on people has really stuck, and I think that it's really cool to see that.
Yeah, and that's where it's, like, really fun, when you know that somebody, like, really enjoys what you're doing, and, I mean, I've had people I've actually saved, like, I put together a bunch of messages where people have, like, just sent me a compliment, like, "Hey, I was going through a rough time, and your podcast really helped me get through. I just threw on a bunch of episodes while I was, doing whatever,
Mhm.
and it's really helped me out." And, and you hear that a lot, like, with TV shows and stuff where people are like, "Oh, I was going through a really rough time and watching Friends or watching Seinfeld or whatever really helped me get through a tough time." But, like, as a kinda like just a regular person to hear somebody say that, it's very nice to know that what I'm doing has helped somebody out and helped brighten their day. And I mean, there's people that have been like, "Oh, yeah, the first thing I do on Monday morning is grab a cup of coffee and put on the podcast." And I'm like, "Well, that's" I know, it's just crazy.
Halfway I just wanted to kinda start to round out here because I have a final topic I would like to talk about with you. Have you been following any of our canola oil stuff?
I saw something about that.
So, we're gonna go in the past here now.
Okay.
Dave has a Subaru Baja that has over 200,000 miles on it. And we ask every guest, we have filled this thing with canola oil. We're going to drive it to 3,000 miles and then we're going to do an oil change. We're asking if people think it'll make it to 3,000 miles. We are currently around the 1,000 mile mark and we've only had to top it off. There's no metal in it. Everything seems like it's pretty copacetic.
No knocking.
So wait, canola oil as the instead of, like, motor oil or canola
Yes.
oil as a fuel?
We are running full Crisco in as engine oil.
Okay.
So, yeah,
And it's been doing okay so far?
the only thing is it smells like french fries.
And did y'all
Does.
so there's no modification to the actual oil, or you're just putting in straight Like Crisco oil?
straight Crisco.
Crisco brand. Crisco brand.
Interesting.
And the benefit of this, which I have been harping on, is that if this continues to work and the car just continues to run, well, then anybody with a Subaru Baja should be just running straight canola oil because your oil changes are going to be like $12.
Yeah, I think it should make it. I mean, if it's doing okay so far at 1,000, only 2 more to go.
Yeah.
Now the question is, at 3,000 miles, we are taking a poll of what to put in next, and some of our top hits have been baby oil or olive oil. So curious if you have any other fluids you think a Subaru could possibly run on.
Not knowing much about the mechanical stuff with the Subaru and engine and stuff, I don't know. That's a good question. So baby oil and olive.
Yeah, I
Those are the
think
two top picks right now.
Gotcha. I don't know if I have a different one. Coconut oil?
coconut
Ooh.
oil is an option. Could run it.
Okay.
Okay, that's what I'm gonna say,
Yeah.
coconut oil.
Okay.
That could
Yeah.
sound that could be smooth. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe the coconut fibers add some extra lubricity for the rod bearings. I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. Coconut fibers, maybe.
I love the word lubricity. I think I think I'm gonna use that one from now on.
Hey, that's a real word.
Okay.
Look that up.
You know what,
Look
Dave?
that
I've
one
been
up.
ever since last episode, I've been using iCrometer at work now.
Yes.
Dave's go-to is how he measures things is with his iCrometer.
Nice.
That's about a 4 millimeter Allen.
Yeah.
And hey, I'm usually right.
I
Hey,
like that.
yeah. So I just wanted to get your take on our Baja situation.
Mm.
It is unfolding as we go here.
That's pretty
Still
cool.
going strong.
Yeah.
Nice.
But Raph, I mean, I honestly, man, I just like there's so much else I want to talk to you about that I would love to have you back on again, or
Yeah, let's do it.
like I would love to just be able to do some more stuff with you and be able to talk more. And I just don't know what else to say other than like the work that you're doing is God's work. It's you're really putting out great episodes, great content. People love everything that you do. And
Thank
I
you.
think that like the effort shows. And I for me, that's huge. I think that when people have nothing but good things to say, then you know that it's quality. So, Dave and I are just so thankful that you gave us the time to come on, and I think that we should definitely hook up again in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. It's fun. I mean, just doing podcasting in general and having genuine conversations is a lot of fun. Because I mean, we all like to talk about Subarus and you can get into other topics as well, but it's just fun to get together and chat.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. But I do want to just circle back to this 5-star review that we got.
SUBIE and YOU exist to hey, we can't forget about my buddy Ben. He's been doing the Dirt Subies podcast.
Yes, that too.
Yeah.
Yeah, anybody who's listening, definitely check out SUBIE and YOU 100%. Awesome
Yes.
episodes. Yeah, the dirt, what is it? The Dirt and
Dirt
SUBIE
Subies.
podcast?
Yeah. That's my buddy Ben. His account, he has it's Lifted Subarus and then Clapped Forester. Those are his other 2 accounts. And then he yeah. Yeah. I asked him, I was like, "Why do you call it Clapped Forester?" And he's like, "Well, I didn't wanna be, like, super, what do you say, vulgar with the name or explicit, so I just call it Clapped
Hey, and you know what?
Forester."
He is not PC. I'll tell you that. I love that
No.
Clap Forester. That thing is great. Let's
Yeah.
go.
He also makes these, he takes the body and the case of an original Game Boy, and he turns them into, like, basically a speedometer using GPS. It's because, like, when you lift your Subaru
I've seen
and
that. I've seen
yeah,
that.
yeah, he's the one that
Is
makes
that
those.
my God.
If you go to
Small
his
world.
That's cool.
yeah, so
Small
his
world.
his
Okay.
website is Lifted Imports, that's his website, and you can find him on
Okay.
there. But
Yeah.
I have
It's
one
a Subaru community is so small.
yeah. Yeah, so I have one in my car. I bought one for my daughter and I bought one for my son. Like they don't need them because, their speedometers aren't off, but they're just fun, and he personalized them for them. So that was really cool. And he personalized mine. Yeah, it says Pearl on it. So that was really cool.
That's amazing. I
I
definitely
need
want one of
I need
those.
him to make me one that says or does my coolant temperature. That's all I want.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if he's thought about expanding into doing anything else with them, but he buys the case and then he does all the electronics and everything inside, and then he puts a magnet on the back so that you can, like, get one of those, like, suction cup
Yeah.
win like, phone mounts,
He's gonna
and
have
then
a
you just
message
mount it on there.
tomorrow in his inbox.
That's amazing. I have seen those recently and people have been hyping them up, so I was like, "Man, that's kinda cool," you know?
Yeah.
I was always a big fan of the old Game Boy mod or whatever. They had the whatever company put out the Game Boy boost gauges. Those were
Mm,
really cool. I don't know if you ever
yeah,
seen those,
I haven't
but,
seen that.
they're, like, super retro, like, some company just took Game Boy shells and they hooked up, like, boost to it, and, like, it actually shows your boost numbers and stuff
That's
on the
cool.
That
dash.
was just China.
Yeah, that was, it was in the super rare parts for a while. Let me see if I can find it real
China
quick.
today.
Yes, here it is. So, Turbo XS. I don't know if you guys ever saw that.
Mm-mm, no.
I'm gonna show you guys a picture right here.
I know
Hang on.
Turbo
Okay.
XS, but
So, hopefully you guys will be able to see this. Let me pull this up. Are you guys able to see this?
Yeah, oh, that Game Boy, the one that flips open.
So, it's the
yeah,
the Game Boy Advance SP, and
Yeah,
basically Turbo XS had their own software that they kinda put into it that would show your boost gauge on a Game Boy on the dash.
that's cool.
So, that was a really cool thing that they came out with, and, yeah, I thought that was cool. So, yeah, I mean, there's very few of these left. I know that. It was kinda like a rare thing that they put out, but people have been hunting for those for a while. I've seen in a lot of the rare parts groups, people are like, "Who has these? I want one."
Yeah, that's cool.
But, yeah, Raph, I just wanna thank you again, and
Yeah, you're welcome.
Dave and I are so thankful to have you on, and I think that, I'm excited to hopefully meet you in person, get out to an event and see you out
Yeah.
there. Are you gonna be at Boxer Fest this year, potentially? Wicked Big, anything?
I would like to. We'll see how things go, but, yeah, it'd be nice if I can make it out at some point.
Uh,
we talked
where
about here for in Colorado for the
Yeah,
Overland Expo.
I'll be there for sure.
Yeah,
So we'll definitely be seeing you there.
Dave's going to Raleigh, Colorado, and
Yes,
then I'm going to STPR out here, so we're gonna
Okay.
be hitting 2 more rally events this year.
yes.
And where are you, Pat?
I'm in New Jersey.
Okay, that's right, yeah.
Yeah. So, that's kind of the plan.
Okay.
We're kind of winging events this year a little bit. I think I am gonna be at Wicked Big. I got invited by a couple people to go out there and I wanna meet with Mark from Company 23 and a
Yeah.
couple other peoples.
I'd
I
like
think
to
I'm
be
gonna
there. I'm just tentative. I'm tentative right now.
I'm just like, dude, doing these events with the booth and everything, it's so much work
It
that
is.
I'm
It is.
like, if I go to Wicked Big this year, I mean, I'm already gonna be boothing at STPR and at Boxer Fest. So, like, for me to go to
You might
Wicked
just be
Big
spectating.
and do another, I'm just going like as is, like, just,
Yeah,
It's tough running a
same.
booth all day.
Well, I feel like I always miss out because
Yeah.
I'm so paranoid, right, about missing, like, Travis coming by the booth or, like, not getting to talk with everybody or, like, I just, like, I get so paranoid about not being there and, you know,
Yeah,
representing.
unless you have a $35 couch.
Yeah, Boxer Fest, we bought a blow-up couch for the booth.
Nice.
We were just we got, like, 2 hours of sleep, and we were just sleeping in the booth. That was a rough one, but but yeah, man, so we'll definitely see you out there, and,
Yeah,
everybody go check out the SUBIE and YOU podcast, and we will definitely catch you again.
of course.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me on. Thanks for inviting me.
Of course, anytime.
Yeah, it was
Thank you,
fun.
man.
We'll
You're
see you
welcome.
guys in the next one.
All right.